When it comes to Jojos, I think everyone can agree with me when I say that Bruno Bucciarati is an objectively great character, but I'm going to take it a step further as I think he is so much more than that, because I think that Bruno Bucciarati is the best character in the entire series. Now don't get me wrong, there are plenty of other characters in the series that you could maybe argue deserve the title of best character over him, like Gyro Zeppeli, Dio and Polnareff, and even some of our main characters like Joseph and Johnny Joestar, but for me they just don't stack up to Bucciarati for several reasons. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Now, I'll be honest, at first I really hated Bucciarati during his introduction for several reasons, this being the biggest one, but the more I got into part 5, the more I started to really like him, to the point where I realized not only how compelling of a character that he truly was by the end of the story, but also just how profound he was compared to many of the other characters that came before him in Jojos. And even after reading the other parts that came after part 5, minus part 9, I still felt that there was no other character that was written and crafted better than Bucciarati for me. At best, they would either be just as amazing as him, but not necessarily better. Now, despite his cold and stoic nature, Bucciarati is a character that is also very kind and caring towards other people, a kindness that he inherited from his own father, which is something that we later discover in his backstory, and because of this, he reminds me a lot of characters like Jonathan Joestar and Thorfinn from Vinland Saga, two characters that also greatly inherited the importance of what it means to be strong but also kind from their respective fathers as well. Now, a big part of Bucciarati's appeal for me, and maybe for many others too, was how he always felt like an evolution of Jonathan's writing, specifically when it came to how strong and kind he was, because as much as I like Jonathan, he was very one-dimensional and his character never really got time to flesh out or be written in a manner that made him interesting as a lot of the other characters that we would later see introduced in the series after part 1. And with Bucciarati, Araki was able to take this core aspect of Jonathan and evolve it into Bucciarati's character while also adding an interesting spin on it at the same time, as Bucciarati wasn't just a kind, stoic man with a strong sense of justice with good morals, but also many other things as well, most notably a gangster, but most importantly he was also a leader and a great one too, which is reflected in his dynamic with his overall team, as he not only looks after everyone and has shown his willingness to protect them, but they're also very loyal to him even after he turned traitor towards the boss, and he also knows when to be serious with them and when to be laid back with them as well. And heck, I think some of the best moments with Bruno are the funny ones where he's acting like a complete goof, and it only happens when he's interacting with the group as they bring out this other side of his character, but it's always done in a way that feels genuine and sincere, which is great because it illustrates that despite Bruno's kind and serious nature, he can also still be funny and comedic, but not in a way that ever felt forced or out of character, which is another reason why I don't feel a good majority of characters in the series can ever stack up to him, because he's always had that perfect balance of being able to be funny while also having many other standout traits like being very stylish, charismatic, tragic, compelling, and just outright cool. Very few characters can have so many traits like this while also being extremely well written at the same time, not just when it comes to Jojos but just anime and manga in general. But Bucciarati isn't just a great leader when it comes to his team, he's also great at looking after those in his hometown of Naples as well, where we see just how much the citizens trust and respect him and also rely on him, along with how well he treats them back. The reason why this is also important to highlight is because it not only so far shows some of the really interesting aspects of his character, but also the parallels between him and the main villain of Jojo's part 5, Diavolo, who we know is not a great leader due to the amount of corruption and betrayal that goes on within Passione, which is due to Diavolo's obsession with putting himself first before the stability of his own organization. Not to mention that as a leader, Diavolo is only respected through fear because of his King Crimson, while Bucciarati is someone that is respected without the need for harvesting terror over those beneath him because of his brilliant leadership skills. I also think that Bruno, being the brilliant leader that he is something that is learnt by Jojo throughout the story, because despite his dream of wanting to usurp Diavolo to create a drugless Italy, he's never really had any leadership experience before, so him learning from Bruno along the way is very essential for his growth. Speaking of Jojo, in my Diavolo video I spoke about how the two share an amazing antagonist and protagonist dynamic with each other, but I also think that Bruno and Diavolo also share a dynamic that is just as equally well put together as well, but mostly because of how much more personal it is, because of how Diavolo's negatively impacted Bruno's life. Despite Bucciarati's strength, his kindness would be his biggest weakness, which is illustrated very well in his backstory, as it showed that a lot of Bucciarati's kind deeds would reward him with a life that for the most part was full of tragedy and complete misery, as he lived in a country that was full of greed and corruption thanks to Diavolo's influence as the essential king of Italy that hid behind the shadows. And because of this influence, it would cause Bruno to lose the very thing that he valued the most, and that was his family, his mother and father, the two people that gave him an amazing childhood before their eventual divorce, and it was all because of drugs. But he never chose to do anything about the drugs, instead just quietly hiding away his hatred for them, as he didn't want to betray his own boss or Passione, the people who were selling them in his own hometown, while also lying about not selling them in his own hometown, which Bruno would later find out. But like I said, it wouldn't matter because Bruno wouldn't do anything about it, as he knew that doing so would risk the potential of him losing his team, aka his new family, a group of misfits that he took in after they too were betrayed by the world around him, just like him. And it's funny because people will joke around and call Bucciarati Mummy Bruno, but it's true, he is like a parental figure to them, which was always Araki's intention, even down to the character design, as Araki chose to give him feminine looking hair as opposed to something masculine due to one of his core personality traits, being someone that is leading a bunch of eccentric youths, minus Abakio because he's the oldest, but he did act like a man-child sometimes, so it kind of checks out. But anyways, putting that aside, Bucciarati has and always will be a protector and family man first and foremost, hence why he wasn't willing to lose another family that he held so dear, which is not only something that many of us can resonate with, but can also understand and maybe even relate to as well. Bucciarati not wanting to lose the only family he had was the only reason why he chose to remain loyal to his boss until he would meet Giorno Giovanna, who not only saw the good in Bucciarati but would also declare to him that he would join him in taking down the boss, something that Bucciarati agreed to do but wasn't fully committed to actually doing, as he was instead trying to make sure that him and his team wouldn't get caught in the crossfire of Giorno's operation to take down the boss, meaning that despite being excited at the idea of Giorno's goal, Bucciarati, at least to me, was deep down still conflicted about the idea, as he was at the very least still hesitant to the point of not wanting to be outed as a traitor, so his team would still remain out of harm's way, which is fair and understandable. But this would change when he finds out that the boss's true intentions was to use him and his team as a shield against the Hitman team to protect his daughter Trish, so that he could kill her himself to remain in power and complete anonymity, which infuriates Bucciarati once again, but this time to the point where he's finally had enough of the boss, as this was the last straw for him, declaring his hatred of his former boss along with his desire to kill him by assassination. Not a bad idea if it weren't for the fact that his boss, his stand ability, could predict his every move, so while Bucciarati's efforts were valiant, they were ultimately a bad idea and it once again goes back to what I was saying about how Bucciarati's kindness is ultimately his weakness. Bruno thought that he could assassinate Diavolo, but as we clearly saw in the fight, he clearly underestimated the situation, something that he has done on numerous occasions before and after his fight with King Crimson, an inherent weakness of his that I find to be another interesting part of his character, because even when he's hit with a major setback, he never let it stop him from getting shit done or finding alternative solutions to his problems that were caused by his own proper lack of judgment or human error, making sure to take the right path for both himself and his team. Bucciarati is resilient, but he's not invincible, nor is he exempt from making mistakes that any other normal person would, which is great because it really does show that he's just like you and me, a very flawed human being, a flawed character, but without him being written in a manner that would also make him look stupid, which can be relatable to a lot of people, including myself, as I find Bucciarati's resolve to always come out on top and protect his team, even in the most dire situations, to always be inspiring and motivating. It's a big part of the reason why I love watching his fights. They're not just really cool and entertaining to watch, but it's also because of how Bucciarati applies himself and his stand Sticky Fingers to the best of his ability by using many creative and unique strategies during almost every combat situation that we see him involved in throughout story. I also love how Bucciarati's character also heavily ties into all of the major themes of Part 5's story just as much as Jojo. The first one being about the importance of relationships, which I've already gone over, the second one being about fate, and the last one being about attaining the desired results through righteous actions. Bucciarati, like Jojo, is someone that's always accepted the poor hand that fate dealt him and decided to make the most of it rather than let it tie him down like Diavolo did, especially after his fight with his former boss. And even after that fight, he made it very clear that he would look for the boss's identity and then take him down to make a positive change in the world, showing that he would never let the chains of fate tie him down from doing so. I love this scene because it's not only a major moment of growth for Bucciarati, but it also gives him a purpose, a motivation that he grows to want naturally that actually feels like it's his own. Yeah, sure, it was originally only Jojo's desire to take down Diavolo, but that was mainly just to make a drugless Italy. But for Bucciarati, it's so much more than that. His feud with Diavolo is so much more personal compared to the one between Jojo and Diavolo. I also love the scene later where Bucciarati directly tells Fugo specifically that while it's true that the work that he did as a gangster was questionable, Bucciarati says that he needed to be true to himself and his ideals, something that is further clarified in the final moment between him and Jojo, where he explains how his heart had been dying slowly and how it came back to life thanks to Jojo as he saved him, not just physically but also by restoring faith in Bucciarati's dying soul, a soul that was slowly dying due to Bucciarati being forced to put his boss and organization before his own morals and ideals in order to protect his family. Thanks to Rolling Stones, we are made aware that Bucciarati was always fated to die, and while he did die tragically, his death was still a beautiful one that would have a positive influence on the world, allowing him to finally rest in peace, knowing that in the end he didn't have to compromise his family or who he was deep down to help his good friend Giorno Giovanna overthrow the Crimson King, completing Bucciarati's character arc with this very satisfying conclusion. And with that, those are my thoughts on why I think Bruno Bucciarati is the best JoJo character. There are gonna be some points that you disagree with in this discussion, so be sure to let me know your gripes with it, along with who you think the best JoJo character is down in the comments. And if you did enjoy this video and want to see more JoJo content from me, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. This is your boy MAMZYY signing out. Thank you for watching, take care and peace.